Senator Johnson, recognized for your questions.
Mr. Chairman, you brought up, or Senator Marshall brought up, the JFK files. I'd recommend anybody that's interested in that to read the JFK and the Unspeakable by James Douglas, and you'll find out why the agencies are probably still reluctant to actually release more of that information. But again, that's information from yesteryear that's important to reveal the truth about history. I want to talk about information in the here and now, that we need to govern action in the here and now, to fix problems in the here and now. And I would argue, and let's also set aside classified information, let's just talk about unclassified information that we do not have access to. Mr. Douglas, you talked about how Congress has willingly given away its classification authority. We've also allowed our oversight capabilities to completely atrophy, or almost completely atrophy. We've allowed that to happen. There's no enforcement mechanism. Now, I want to use the example I used yesterday in the Finance Committee with Secretary Becerra. I asked him, first of all, Mr. Secretary, do you think it's important that we understand where the coronavirus came from? He said, absolutely. And I said, well, what is your agency, HHS, are you leading an effort to determine that? And kind of some gobbledygook, and then he said, well, but we're not getting cooperation. I said, well, interesting you said that. We're not getting cooperation from your agency. And then I gave him a couple examples. There's two areas that the American public can get information out of the government. One is FOIA requests, and unfortunately that often has to go through a court and have that be court-ordered, although it shouldn't be, and then through congressional oversight, right? So I have two examples of both. This was a document. These are the famous Anthony Fauci emails, okay? Through a FOIA request, people got them early, and what we did is shortly after, we had 5 members of this committee. There's actually a law, 5 U.S.C. 2954, that says if 5 members of this committee request information, the government shall provide it, right? So under that statute, we wrote the letter. We got this document, okay? This is dated February 4th. The classification here is the exception 4 is why it's redacted. And that has to do with trade secrets or confidential, commercial, or financial information. This is the same document recently produced under FOIA to the general public. It's not redacted. So now I know what's under the redactions. Serial passage in ACE2 transgenic mice. That's what was covered up. This Anthony Fauci with question marks going. This is in February 4th. He's already recognizing that maybe the coronavirus came from a lab, from experiments with those humanized mice. That was denied Congress in our oversight capability. A couple days earlier, similar type of thing. This is what we got in congressional oversight, all redacted. This is what was obtained under FOIA request. So again, we can see under the redactions now. Okay, again, not because the agency gave it to us, because a court ordered it. It's interesting, this is classified under exception number 5, which is deliberative process, inter or intra-agency communications. What's interesting about this email chain, it includes Jeremy Ferrara of the Wellcome Trust. He doesn't work for a U.S. government agency, so you've already blown the privilege in terms of confidentiality, but it's, so again, they're not following the law. Through the accommodation process, we asked for all 4,000 pages. We narrowed it down to 400. They wouldn't give them to us. They allowed us to read it in a reading room. We could take notes, no copies. Over the course of a year, up until about January 2022, we got 350 of the 400 pages we requested. Since January 2022, we've been fighting tooth and nail for the last 50 pages. This is what we've gotten. This is what the FOIA request got, okay? This is what it looks like. Okay? There's obviously some important information in this last 50 pages, and we can't get it. Now, I will say the only reason we got the 350 pages is because Chairman Ossoff, to his credit, as chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee Investigation, I'm ranking member, signed a request for these documents, and then made some phone calls to start the process of production to us. And so my message is mainly targeted or directed to Chairman Peters and Chairman Blumenthal. Congress has to reclaim its oversight capability. We need some kind of enforcement mechanism. Okay, I'd love to pass a law. But again, we've got laws on the books. They're not complying with the laws. They are flagrantly not complying with the laws. But there's no enforcement mechanism. They know that. The administration knows that. So this problem just gets worse. So the only mechanism we have right now is public pressure, obtained by bipartisan efforts. So my plea, Mr. Chairman, is join us in these requests for information that the American public deserves. There should be nothing partisan about the origin of COVID. It's our response to COVID occurred under 2 administrations. There's nothing partisan about that. This is information the public deserves to know, but also policy makers need to know so we can act, so we can fix problems. Because I don't think anybody can take a look at our response to COVID and say it was a dramatic success. No, it was a miserable failure. Mr. Edding, the question I have for you is, particularly in a political environment, when you've got the White House controlled by one party and a branch of Congress controlled by that same party, I mean, if the administration just gives us the middle finger, there's just no enforcement mechanism. We can't even hold them in contempt. And if we are to hold them in contempt, if you have a political party in one chamber able to do that, the Department of Justice is not going to prosecute that. What kind of enforcement mechanism can we have for Congress to reclaim its oversight authority?
Senator Johnson, thank you very much for the question. The impeachment mechanism can be used against any civil officer of the government, from the President of the United States on down to the most lowly GS5 clerk. So, to borrow your paradigm here, one of the things that frustrated me when I worked in the House of Representatives was learning that when Speaker Pelosi had the opportunity to put an end to the Stellar Wind program, the illegal warrantless surveillance program, which FISA Section 702 is the grandchild of, she claimed that she had no authority to act, she didn't have staff in the room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And she's a very bright woman, a very, very capable woman. What I couldn't understand for the life of me is why she didn't ask for everybody's business cards. And you're probably wondering why. After she had collected those business cards, she should have thanked them and said, I just needed to make sure that I had your names right so I could get them spelled correctly by legislative counsel for the impeachment resolution that I'm going to introduce against you, all of you. So respectfully, and I do mean this respectfully, you do have a tool. And I'd be willing to bet that a certain gentleman from Ohio, who happens to be heading up a specific subcommittee or committee in the House of Representatives, would probably be willing to work with you to begin to incentivize bureaucrats within the executive branch to follow the law. That's my recommendation, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Addington.